Award-winning yet mediocre and controversial ag teachers Lyle Loegman and Marshall Swafford are doing the ultimate ag education podcast for you. That's right, you. Each week, Lyle and Swaff will discuss topics that are important to the profession in this practical but unvarnished podcast in the hopes that you and your students will benefit. Disclaimer: the information provided in this podcast will be accurate and professionally beneficial, but we are not too worried about saying it nicely.
Hello, and welcome to the Ministry of Gentlemanly Ag Teachers, where we share with you the tips and tricks that have made us the highly controversial yet motivational ag teachers we are today. Joining me, as always, is my compadre, Lyle P. Loegman, and today we have a very, very special guest, and this is Agnes Cruz, principal of Baker Elementary School in Canadian, Texas. Lyle, how's it going?
It's about time we had a guest star on Swaff. I've been thinking this for a long time. We need to have somebody on that actually knows something.
Yes, and
it's important.
so we went to the top of the list.
And y'all figure I'm the one that knows something? Okay, let's just tell the truth, gentlemen. I'm the only one available because I live here.
They just so happen to live together. And so
We've met.
It's very, very convenient for us on the Ministry of Gentlemanly Ag Teachers to have Agnes with us to share her knowledge as well. Because me and Swaff combined have worked our whole lives to try to know something. And it's been difficult every step of the way.
And you needed a female in your show. There you go.
Well, because today, the fourth episode, Manure, Mayhem, and Motivation, the recipe for creating a great ag program in FFA Chapter, we know that Agnes is a manure expert, and she is going to be able to help sift through the particles of what's right and what's wrong when motivating children and how to control mayhem when we are working with students. Because when she greets all of the little children at Baker Elementary School, she gets hugs from all these kids. And I was there a couple of weeks ago when she was standing there greeting her little children with a smile on her face when every rugrat came up there. And I got to thinking to myself, she is a strong woman because, one, I don't like people to begin with, let alone people that are shorter than me, running up and giving me a hug every day before school starts. And I guess Agnes enjoys it because she's about the same height as all the little elementary school kids at Baker. And the love that is spread by those germ-filled mini-humans.
Easy.
Okay, I should say.
That's right.
Easy.
They are my little
Yeah.
humans. See, Lyle can't be in my school because they'll come up to like his shins because he's like 8 feet tall. So those kids will come to your shins.
They'll think I'm a giant. They'll make fun of me.
Well, no, they're little. They don't make fun of people yet.
They would make fun of you if you weren't a giant.
That's later in life, Lyle. That's the kids y'all have that make fun of you.
That's
My
fine,
kiddies
Swaff.
are nice people.
Get your digs in right now.
Well, speaking of digs, so I got new glasses back in the spring because getting older is messing with my vision or lack thereof. And I got myself a red pair and I got myself a gray pair. And last week, one day, I was walking around the shop with the kids and I was like, I can't see. Like, what is the matter with me? I thought I was getting cataracts. Like, this is like early onset overnight cataracts. As it turned out, I was wearing dirty glasses.
All right, gentlemen, carry on so y'all can teach me something.
Well, Swaff, you're 78 years old. You know, it's time.
Close.
Yeah, well, like my teaching partner got me a walker about the first month of school. She goes, "Oh, I got something for you out in the truck."
Found it on the sidewalk.
And I go out to the truck, and there really was a walker out there. I was like,
there is.
Well, did you get me some like Metamucil or some Ensure so I can keep this figurely shape? Okay,
right. Yeah. So let's get into why we're here.
Why are we here? Manure, it's first on the list. Manure.
Right.
So, what's really cool is that the foundation of ag education is manure.
Right.
And we as ag teachers know that all of us are full of it. And 60% of the time, we can't believe, half the stuff that other people say. But really, the investigation into manure or artificial manure really kind of revolutionized ag education because we started developing in the late 1800s some controlled scientific investigation in how to create or improve fertilizer for crop production, which then evolved into strategic ag education, where we had a focus for what was going on and how to teach and what to teach students to improve agriculture to what we kind of have today. So to me, I think it's just ironic that the foundation of ag education is a load of crap. And
what?
Okay.
From
That's deep. I'm learning so much.
Well, I mean, that load of crap is pretty important because it helped, really promote the science revolution in ag education. And, sometimes in ag education, we are looked at as, okay, those are those guys out in the shop. They don't really do anything out there. They're just ag people. How hard could that be? Some of the smartest people I've ever met in my life are ag people. And
not ag people, but I'm smart.
So, little digress here. Miss Agnes is not an ag person, but we're trying to make her into one. And one day she will graduate up to where she's not afraid to touch the student show lambs at the Canadian ISD school farm. It's not several years. So the first summer after I was at Arkansas Tech, I got this phone call late one night that some judge had backed out of judging a sheep and goat jackpot show over in Jonesboro and wanted to know if I could come over and do it. Oh, sure. And so I go, hey, Agnes, you want to go with me? I'm judging this sheep and goat show, assuming that she knew what a sheep and goat show was.
I was being supportive.
And so we get over to the sheep and goat jackpot show, which was outside, and it was a neat little show to judge, but I failed to wear a hat. And at that time, I didn't wear hats all the time like I do now to protect my melon. And so I go judge this sheep and goat jackpot outside with my bald head. And when I got done with the show, my head had the resemblance of my Dr. Pepper cup that looks like I got it from a Pizza Hut in 1997.
Because he's bald, folks.
Yes.
I had hair until I started teaching. Kids always go, Swaff, what happened to your hair? Well, when I started teaching, I had some. And then I met students like you.
It lefted your head.
Wow.
And it lefted my head.
Wow.
Okay,
getting back to the sheep and goat jackpot, Agnes didn't really know what to expect. And as it turned out, she was deathly afraid of 37-pound goats. And so we just try to avoid that at all costs. And then when I hijacked her in to go and help her with the goat show at the Arkansas State Fair, and one of them rubbed up against her, she has not forgiven me ever since. So what does all that mean? What it means is absolutely nothing as it relates to the Manure foundation of ag education. But needless to say, ag education was founded as a result of researching poop. And that should make us all feel warm and fuzzy on the inside. When it comes right down to it, it is actually very important because it gave us a really true scientific foundation of what we're teaching in ag education. And we don't need to lose sight of the fact that, yes, because our specific content area is agriculture, we needn't forget that it is an agricultural science. And incorporating those concepts into our classes is good for our students, and it's good for us because that keeps us on top of what's going on out there in the industry, depending on where you teach and the level of respect that you have or don't have from your fellow teaching colleagues at the school. Teaching some science or teaching agricultural science can help minimize some of those weird and dirty looks you get from some of the other teachers that want to go, you're just ag, you don't teach a real concept. And I always find that hard to choke down. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, if you look back to the basic let's start here, okay? So for half of your dialogue, Swafford, I didn't have a clue what you were talking about, but I'm with you.
Well,
now.
neither did I.
Anyway, so if we look at the basic foundations of agricultural education going all the way back to the colonial era, which at some point you and I and Agnes had a relative that lived in that era. At some point.
Well, Agnes might have, but they didn't live on this continent.
Well, be that as it may or be that not as it may, they were in that era. And more than likely, they were probably a part of an agrarian society. So around the turn of the century, the year 1900, 40% of our population was directly involved in production agriculture. Now it's 0.6%, which represents about 2 million of us, okay? So from that standpoint, if we look at the foundations of agricultural education, if we're talking about manure, we need to talk about the fact that 32 signers of the Declaration of Independence were farmers or at least claimed some kind of farm income. And also that George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, the two of our primary founding fathers, served as presidents of the United States, were some of the first to experiment with selective improvement of livestock, crop rotation, and the usage of fertilizers. And so when we, at some point, you and I and Agnes and everybody who's listening or not listening, at some point had...
Oh, we'll listen.
Had to coax something from the soil. And so our primary objective right now as agriculture educators is to, when our students come into our classroom or run into the show ring or go or go to a leadership development event or a career development event with us, we're trying to coax some kind of lesson to be learned that they have to learn. And so when we talk about why Manure is important is because in order to grow something, we have to have that agent there in order to make something happen. So from our standpoint as agricultural educators, and I can't remember what your question was, Swaff, or what my thoughts were on that question.
What you said, it sounded really good. So
but it's really, I'm learning. I'm like enjoying listening to this
idea
because I knew some of those things.
No idea where I was going with this, but what I am saying as an educator, whether you've been doing it for 30 years or 1 year, it doesn't discount from the challenges that occur, especially from a societal standpoint where 3 or 4 generations, I'm 2 or 3 generations removed from the farm. That is a commonality being a part of agricultural education or being a part of the industry. And so that just because you're removed from it doesn't mean there's not opportunities available to learn the lessons that it has to teach. And so that's my opinion on Manure. Why is it important? Manure. And what's that old saying that everything that we know, for all the knowledge that we know, we went to space, we've done incredible things, but we owe all that to 6 inches of topsoil and the fact that it rains.
Right.
And
that's true.
Well
said.
The Manure is that foundation that kind of justifies, what we're doing. And it just blows my mind is people remember when I was a freshman in college, I met some kids from St. Louis and they were like, "What's your major?" I go, "Ag education." They go, they teach agriculture in school?
It's the primary objective of a land-grant university.
And it blows my mind that people don't know that ag education is a part of schools. And people go, "Well, when did they start doing that?" And people that don't understand history are the problem. If you look,
they're a big problem. I mean, it's getting worse too.
If you look back to colonial education, ag education wasn't this standalone little item over here that you did.
It was life.
That was education.
That was survival. It wasn't education. It was just pure survival.
That's true.
Yeah. And that's what you went to school, and it was just a part of it. And unfortunately, that's not seen like that all the time. And that's where the whole lack of ag literacy among the general population has dwindled and become what it has been. And when I did my master's, it was all centered around ag literacy. So there's a warm spot in my heart for ag literacy today. But, when I met Miss Agnes here a few years ago, she was kind of that poster child for where we have allowed our society to kind of live when people like you and me and all those other folks out there that are involved in the ag industry have made it so easy for folks like Agnes to go to the grocery store and not think about anything other than, "Oh, that looks good, let's buy that, and I'm going to make this, so I need some of this over here," without ever truly understanding the work that goes into what she's buying at the store. And I remember the first time one of the first times we went grocery shopping together, we were going and we were buying eggs. And I always open, from being an old ag teacher, I always open the carton of eggs, and I'm going through the carton looking for any cracked eggs or anything weird like some calcium deposits. Ooh, that kind of neat, and making sure that all the eggs were going to be okay before I put it in the carton and went home. And Agnes was like, "What are you doing?"
I know.
"I'm checking out the eggs." "Well, why are you checking out the eggs?" "Well, I'm going to make sure there's nothing broken, make sure we don't have any deformities that they have gotten past the guys at the factory," and kind of had this neat little impromptu introductory poultry lesson. And now when Agnes goes to the store, we're checking expiration dates, and we're really looking at steaks and roasts before we put them in the cart. We always check our eggs. And it's not that I'm trying to turn everybody into a farmer. That's not what I'm doing. As a general group, as ag educators, it's kind of our responsibility to see to it that the general public is educated about what's going on, because the more removed we become as a society from agriculture, we get more and more of a population that tends to resemble Miss Agnes's experiences rather than our experiences. And that's where misunderstanding happens. We see things on the news or on social media where understand how production agriculture works, and then we start getting warped views, misleading comments, misleading websites, Facebook posts, and some of the extremists that, while I think sometimes their heart may be in the right place, completely misled, which then in turn misleads other individuals. And then that's where some of the societal breakdown happens because of a lack of ag education knowledge.
Well,
I will say I don't know a lot about it, but what I've learned, I can tell you, I was the ignorant, the oblivious person to it. And that is so true. And it's embarrassing as an educator that what you guys do is so important. And people like me, I had no idea. I look at things differently now, learning from him and from all the things that I've done. I don't like touching the farm animals. That's never going to change. But it's just that awareness that you guys bring that is so important. And like I said, as an educator and a principal, it's something that I would love for the little kids in my school. And we do better here in Canadian because there is those opportunities for them to go out and be exposed to those things. But that doesn't happen in the big cities. And that's a shame.
Well, I'll say this. And so when we talk about agricultural literacy, I came from ag people, and I realize that now. I didn't have a good understanding until I became an 8th or 9th grader what ag was. And I was in it every day. But I didn't understand at that point. I felt like I was way behind when I was a freshman or sophomore in high school, trying to understand what is all encompassing about agriculture. But the thing is too, and we say that I heard a story the other day. There was I'm not going to name names or anything. We don't want to do that, do we, Swaff? Anyway.
You would if I weren't here.
So there was a government official somewhere in some state that may or may not be close to Texas that walked up to a group of high schoolers that were at some booth for promoting agriculture. And this government official just so happens to be high up in maybe the Secretary of Energy in some state close to Texas. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
Anyway, she came up to this group of high schoolers and she was telling them about how bad the emissions are in agriculture and if these high school kids knew anything about that. She just grilling them, just like 18, own adult grilling these 18-year-old kids who are just trying to promote agriculture and get you.
Which, interesting enough, you mentioned grown adult picking on 18-year-olds, which by law are adults. Would you like to revise your statement?
Anyway, we're going to quibble over fine points. Anyway, this is a grown adult of many years, probably about 50 years old, grilling these kids about how agriculture is the devil and responsible for all the world's problems. And she goes, did you know all the emissions that are caused by agriculture? And as a kid, especially, and what we try to do, we encourage them to be advocates for agriculture and have constructive dialogue, especially with somebody who is your elder in many years. And I was just kind of like, I'm hearing this story and I'm going, I would have handled it completely different. If she'd have told me, you know about all the emissions and how terrible agriculture is? I'm like, yeah, we've been to that dance. We're at that dance every day. It's our fault. Yep. We're working on it. Yeah. We doing everything we can for you. We're doing absolutely everything we can for you and struggling in the process. And never in the history of the world, despite how bad people think American agriculture is, every American, man, woman, and child, we produce enough food to provide every man, woman, and child in this country and the rest of the world over 3,000 calories of food a day. And you and I know we don't need 3,000 calories of food a day. I don't need to consume 3,000 calories of food a day. And so never in the history of the world has, especially in this country, has the world been provided with a more safe, affordable, abundant, diversified, ever-improving food, fiber, fuel, feed, and shelter supply. And yet, we have the freedom to criticize the people who do it. It's your fault. It is completely your fault. And we're going to make you feel bad about it. But that just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Because I was just kind of like, you got a group of kids who are trying to advocate, do something all right. And then somebody just grills them about how bad agriculture is. And you wonder why people don't want to learn. They're going to feel intimidated.
Right. Well, and it's like, I always talk to the kids about, when we were talking FFA history and why things changed and evolved and why, FFA is no longer Future Farmers of America because there's more to agriculture than farming. And we talked about how difficult the 80s were for the FFA. It's one of the handful of years where the national FFA membership numbers actually decreased for 2 or 3.
I learned that too.
2 or 3 years in there. Yes, she's learning a lot. And why it decreased here for 2 or 3 years because parents were not seeing any value in kids going into agriculture because they'd probably just lost their farm. Yeah. And it's like when my grandfather died in 1984, my dad and his brother didn't inherit the farm because the bank came and took it back. Right. And so it's like now cattle prices are astronomical right now. I wish I had 500 feeder calves sitting out back.
You could
unload. Sell
them, but could you go buy more? That's
true.
The thing, and they're like, well, we're doing really good, but could you go buy more? I mean, could you go buy them again just like that?
No, and that's what's crazy. I guess maybe the best thing I wish I had 500 mama cows out back. But
right, the cow-calf guy's doing really good right now. I mean, really good.
I would have to call somebody to help me pull calves because
you got Agnes.
She's not going to shoot them.
It'd be great after 4 or 5, Agnes. You'd be a pro.
Yeah.
Well, we're
yeah.
not going to find out because we're not even going to do one. Okay, carry on.
So back to Mayhem. Oh,
Yeah.
so look at this shirt. It's the Lyle Lugman. It's got a collar.
I didn't even know you owned a collared shirt.
And look at that.
No, check
Pearl
out those.
snaps.
Just for you, Lyle.
Pearl snaps. This is one of my new fancy welding shirts that I wear out into the shop. So as I claim with the other teachers in the school, I don't tear up my good clothes. It's basically so I can wear a t-shirt every day out in the shop and I can just throw on my welding shirt. But all my guy students, which interestingly enough, I am 99% male on my side of the program. I have 80 students, 79 of which are boys, and I have one girl. She's probably the best student I have, and I've got a bunch of them, but she's
a girl.
But she's a really sweet young lady. The guys have been clamoring all over themselves the last few days on Swaff's new welding shirts. And normally, this would be about the time we run a quick little midstream message about sponsors, but we ran out of those after the first 3 episodes, and so
everybody gave up on us.
I'm not going to talk about my brand of my shirt. We'll talk about my Dr. Pepper glass. Yeah, Magellan.
Oh my God.
Pick them up at your local Academy
And
Sports
the
and
Dr.
Outdoors.
Pepper glass that Swafford stole from the town cafe.
No. So this...
Way to call him out.
I really got a good story about this Dr. Pepper cup. So it looks like the old Dr. Pepper cups from the Pizza Hut in Savannah, Missouri, back in the 80s and 90s where I grew up. And it's not, because it's new, Lyle. So we talk about Mayhem, and this kind of segues right into our Mayhem section. So back in the summer, when we took our students to the Texas State FFA Convention in Fort Worth, which I had never been to before, being a native non-Texan, I had never had a reason to go to the Texas State FFA Convention. Lyle and I actually got some really good pictures at the State FFA Convention with ourselves. And if I do it right, you might actually be seeing one of those on the screen right now during the show. But one of the days of the state convention, we didn't have much going on. And one afternoon, we snuck off and we took the kids to Waco, to the Dr. Pepper Museum. And sometimes those little side trips with students can be very, very enjoyable.
They're the best. They're the best.
They are. And we went outside of town and cruised around, and we went to, gosh, who is it? The folks that have the Magnolia stuff, and saw some great interior design ideas and some good bedding, but really had some good food truck food. And went to the Buc-ee's, one of the Buc-ee's on I-35, because you got to get my Buc-ee's fixed when I'm in that part of the country.
We got to.
But then off sometimes.
These things are not staying.
So apparently her.
I'm having trouble, and I'm trying to listen to Lyle.
Oh, well, so because now she plugged back in her headphone, it appears as though we have Hell's Bells from AC/DC starting to play on the show.
Sorry. See why I'm not invited all the time? Continue with Mayhem.
Okay, so Mayhem. School trips, working in the shop, and everyday activities in the classroom that lead to mayhem can be bad for your heart, but can be great for the kids. And Lyle, let's talk a little bit about Mayhem and why sometimes not having a script to follow can really turn into maybe some of the best lessons and experiences that your students can have.
Well, ain't nobody got heartburn like I do. It eats me up. My heartburn is crippling. I'll be real honest with you. I probably need to go get checked out. You're
so young.
My heartburn, it comes from you want to do really good for kids. You want to do the best you can for your students. And some days you don't feel like you can do that. Like I teach eye mechanics just like you do, Swafford, and you understand. One of the big challenges is keeping things supplied and keeping everything working, because if just one thing in that shop ain't working, it takes you down for the whole day. And then you got to figure out what to do, and it's just every day, things that you wouldn't think would break the air compressor, and you can't run the plasma torch out the dang air compressor, and there's just lots of things you can't do with just setbacks, just things that happen every day that would happen in a regular old shop if the kids were in industry. But, it's just things like that. That's what causes the heartburn,
And it sends you into this episode where,
because you got to keep them busy. It is not smooth sailing, and if you don't keep them busy in the shop, they get real creative with ways to just mess around.
And they begin to resemble the age of the children in her school.
That's right.
Yeah. And
heartburn is trying to keep everybody alive.
I'm the same way. If you leave me to my own devices in a shop, I can tear a lot of things up.
Well, and so you talk about the mayhem from our perspective. So we got this so we got this new rule in Texas or new state law or something that came about where the whole conflict of interest and school purchasing and vendors and some things like that. And one of our big vendors there for the school district is the local hardware store. And great little place, guys are great to work with, cool people. But one of the owners of the hardware store company is sitting on our school board. And because of that right now, we cannot use our normal vendor to buy stuff. Until we get a waiver from the Texas legislature that allows us to use them, we can't. And so me being able to just go pop down and pick up some bolts or, oh man, I need a couple extra 2x4s. Nope.
No, it's tough.
We're sending, our head of maintenance is going once a week to Amarillo to pick up stuff. And it's really made some mayhem type days where, Swaff, we need this, when I could have run out over my free period and gathered up some stuff. And now it's like, if it's, $3 or $4, okay, fine, I'll just go take care of it. But, how many times you want to go say, shoot, we need 75 stuff. I start going $75 every other day at the hardware store for stuff that's not mine. The boss lady's going to start wanting to know where all the money's going. And that could cause mayhem.
Yeah. Because all the hoops you got to jump through. And I'm a pretty linear thinker, so a lot of this is hard for me to wrap my head around. Protocol's tough for me. Because
really,
I'm naturally disinclined to acquiesce to their request, and so which in English means no.
I was just gonna say, when did we start?
I was like sugarcoating it there.
Wow.
Lyle.
When did we get to Geoffrey Chaucer in English literature class?
Yeah, I'm disinclined to acquiesce to your request. It means no. But when I foul up a little bit, I say, and I know what's coming. I know they're gonna say a little thing to him, and I'm like, that was just a serious and continuous lapse in judgment, which I shall endeavor to rectify in the near future, shall the opportunity present itself, which means I'll do better next time.
Okay, I just woke up from my nap like 45
I was like, I think I blacked out for a second there.
Ever talk like that again, and people are going to start calling in, and we don't even have a number on the screen. I'll start getting missed. What's going to happen? I'm going to start getting texts from our ag teacher friend in Nazareth, Texas, Austin Heck, we're coming for you. He'll start texting me during the show. Even when we're taping, he'll know. Because he's the kind of guy, he was like my dad, he always knew when you were doing something stupid. And it's like, every good ag teacher knows, and the guys are in the back of the shop doing not what they're supposed to be doing. So like, for example, we have the no cell phone rule at school here in Texas. And I had a couple of guys that were out behind the shop in the Sherwood Forest, we call the back area behind the shop where Swaff keeps all the steel and crap, looking for a piece of pipe to use as a sleeve to slide down over a project. And I'm like, guys, where are so-and-so and so-and-so? They were going to go out back to get a piece of pipe. And I pop my head out there, and I love it when children sit on something and are hunched over, and they have the cell phone in front of them trying to hide it. Like, I'm not smart enough to figure out you've got your cell phone, because I do the same thing when I'm in a meeting. And so I'm like, gentlemen, what are we looking for? Did you find that pipe, or did we somehow find our cell phone that fell out of our pants pocket? Sorry, Swaff. Yeah, so,
So
we're not saying you can't have a phone. We're not even saying you can't carry a phone. All we're saying is we can't see the phone.
There you go. Since you guys are here to help other ag teachers, so what do you do when you have all this mayhem and things happen? When the kids have a plan for you because you don't have a plan B? Lyle.
Well, you can't run around. I don't know what you're doing.
I know.
And here's what we talked about last time with your lesson planning.
So what do you do?
Well, in all of my training to be a teacher at the universities I attended, that really, really made me ready.
Yeah, let's talk about real life made you ready.
That really just prepared me for what I was to expect. Swaff pretty much bamboozled me pretty good, but I point and yell a lot, and that seems to keep things pretty steady. No, I mean, I have to keep myself pretty accountable, because students are going to call you out, and mine do a lot, because there's just 33 different things going on in your head all the time. That you are concerned about. You go to bed at night, you're like, ooh, that's a concern. I better do that tomorrow. In order to, they have to have consistency. And I remember as a student, I had to have consistency. If you don't have consistency and structure, it's difficult to know how to behave. And I think that's psychologically human nature. I mean, you got to have a little structure. You got to know where the line's at. And when you know where that line's at, you know how to make it easier on your ag teacher because in the shop and like as in the setting we're in, that's a high pressure setting because
Right.
a kid can get hurt, student can get hurt, and when that happens, that's on us.
Absolutely.
And that injury or something that happens or something that that's on us. And you have to be. I'm different in the shop than I am in the classroom because
You don't
it's
have
a
a
lot
choice.
more high stakes.
Yeah.
And so, it's, I don't, rough housing, horsing around, things like that, they don't fly with me very good, and kids are kids and they're going to mess around and have fun, but you have to maintain, they have to know where the line's at. When I point and yell, they know where the line's at. In fact, they're probably over the line, but
And with managing that mayhem, and you say the classroom and the shop are a little bit different, and you're right, but at the same time, they're also a lot, they're the same. At the same time, they're the same.
right. And here's where Swaff's
And
going to tell me I'm wrong.
no,
And
no.
I welcome that kind of constructive
I'm
criticism,
actually going to say you're right.
but make
They
it concise and short.
I use the way that students act in the classroom as their ticket to get to go to the shop.
Yeah.
If you can't function effectively in the classroom, if I can't trust you when I turn my back around in the classroom, then there's no way in God's green earth I'm going to let
Heck
you go out to the
no.
shop.
No way. It ain't going to happen. Yeah.
And so the way that you manage what goes on in the classroom has a direct relationship with what goes on out in the shop. And, we talk about what happens when you've got a little mayhem and things don't go right. Those of us that have been around this game for a while, we know how to pivot. I've had to pivot dramatically here this fall. Going to install some software on our kids' iPads. We're going to do some project design, and we have run into roadblock after roadblock with our good tech guys. Finally, I'm just like, you know what? I am not going to waste any more class time. We've probably wasted 2 solid days over the last couple of weeks on trying to get these programs to work, and they're just not. And so I'm able to pivot, and instead of doing right now our project design work, we're just going to go out and we're flipping, and we're going to go directly into the shop, and we're going to get our IBCs for our kids in welding, and we're just going to flip it, and we're going to do that a month earlier than what I was planning. Now, if we're a young teacher, we could be just flustered beyond all flustered right now.
Yeah.
Like, oh, what do we do? Where do we go?
Yeah.
And that's where, oftentimes it's hard for people like me to tell a young teacher how to handle something like that, because one, every situation is different. And, I guess one of the ways that you could address some of these concerns as a young teacher is, if you've got your semester planned out ahead of time and you are able to flip-flop some, units, so to speak, that's going to be one of the better ways to handle this. Because you can't sit around and run around and go, I don't know what to do today. And let the kids to their own devices, because we all have a student just like Lyle, and God only knows what's going to happen when we don't do what we were planning. And
you got to seek out people that know something. And especially with the projects we've been building, I don't know how to build them. I didn't build a trailer in high school. You got to find somebody who knows what they're doing and can guide you on that and can give you some advice and come by and see what's going on. Because I'm not going to sit and look at a blue. We'll get it wrong. I'll get it wrong. I mean, you got to have somebody that can speak about it in my language, about how the engineering, about how it works. And so I got to have, how my brain works and figure out what they're talking about. And so anyway, I mean, everybody, let's just go build it. It ain't that easy. And so you got to find somebody who knows what they're doing.
Right. We're building we're beginning to build a livestock box for the back of our school truck. One of those, just one little show jock boxes where you can throw 3 or 4 pigs and a couple lambs in there. And I spent all weekend on the computer looking for aluminum. And Miss Agnes is so tired of me looking at the computer. I didn't even open it tonight when I got home from school. And I figured out that other than the fact that aluminum is more expensive than I thought it was, trying to actually design one of these things on Autodesk Fusion 360, slightly beyond my reasoning ability as a non-engineer to do that. But that's not your problem as the listener. That's my problem as the teacher, which I am responsible for learning and addressing. So how to address some of this mayhem?
And they're glad you have that problem.
What?
They're glad you have that problem. Yeah. I'm glad you got that problem, because I'm not good at aluminum. I'm not good at welding aluminum. I don't know how. I wouldn't know the first thing about how to weld aluminum.
Well, you start with aluminum sticks, or you can
teach you now.
You can braze it, you can TIG it, you can even MIG it. Got some options, none of which are actually very easy.
See, I didn't even.
So,
JB Weld.
hey, sometimes it's the only option.
That's all you got.
Okay.
but it's all
So-
you need.
because JB Weld is motivating, and it motivates you to want to learn how to weld because you can't JB Weld everything. So Lyle, what do you do? And we're going to ask Miss Agnes here because elementary school students are a little bit different than the older kids.
They're great.
And they always love coming to school. I've seen them. They hug her immensely. She smells like an elementary school kid at the end of the school day. And it's easy for her to motivate those students because they're still school's neat and school's fun. And I get to go off campus when I'm in third grade in Canadian and go to the Cat's Paw and get lunch and not have to sit in the cafeteria. And mom can come pick me up because mom works in the school and I can come across town and eat lunch with my child. And so all those little kids are always super excited to see Miss Cruz every day. But what do we do with the high school kids that are, sometimes we're just happy that they were able to wake up?
Well, I think about algebra is an intimidating subject. Geometry is.
I couldn't
Trigonometry.
agree more.
Calculus is an intimidating subject. But English can be, the core subjects can be intimidating to a student that I think that thrives in an environment where they can build something. When a student comes up to me and says they want to take their weld home, well, sure, that's good. Well, they want to show that to somebody because that's something they may feel more confident in your shop or in your show ring or going wherever they're going with you. You may be your subject may be where they find the most confidence. Or you can be a student who's very good at all the core subjects, doesn't like to talk to people at all, but you're responsible for pushing them to do that. And they don't like it at first. They don't find that very foreign to them. But I think the most motivating thing for them is to see a little progress. And so I think that's the key to any good program is that you see a little bit of progress every day from them. And some progress faster than others. And speaking as someone who didn't progress very fast and really, really, really had to work at it, in everything that I did, things didn't come naturally to me at first, and then a lot of those things feel natural now, but I have to remind myself that it doesn't come natural to everybody, and you have to make it at some point it'll become natural to them. But that's what I think motivates a student. I tell them too, especially in our what we're doing right now. If we're both teaching ag mechanics, I tell them, I go, guys, I'm gonna tell you something. If you know how to do some of these things, it'll really help you out in life down the road. And I had great ag teachers, but I ran the cutting torch way more as an ag teacher than I ever did as a student because that's what I push. I push them welding a lot. And these kids, my students have been welding a lot of flat pads. I mean, they weld and weld and weld and weld until it's not what can be shown. It's not what can be taught. It's not what can be told. Some of it's stuff they have to learn on their own.
Right.
But you just have to put the tool in front of them to do it. And they'll come up to me with a weld and I'll go, I don't know. Go do it again. Try something different. And sometimes I don't know how to coach them, but they'll come back and I'll go, that's a pretty good weld because they figured out how to do it their way and their consistency and things like that. And so I think that's what keeps kids motivated.
And we are in a unique position out in our building or in our side of the school district or wherever, same building, whatever. We're fortunate. We got our own building at Canadian, so we can hide from all of the other teachers. But we are fortunate in our little industry profession here that we have the perfect opportunity every single day to build up a child. And building up a child is as much as big time motivation. When you've got students that we know struggle in other classes and they do something good, don't think for a second I'm not above celebrating that at the top of my lungs. I've got some students that every now and again they'll pull something off in the shop that wasn't quite sure they were going to be able to get done, and I mean, I'll shut the shop down. Hey, everybody, stop! Listen, this is what so and so just did. And all my guys are out there really good,
Yeah.
And that's the thing that we need to do and the motivation is a tricky one because there's so many things that motivation can be tied to. Motivating students to work hard for a CDE or an LDE or a speaking event, motivating that student just to stay in school is a big one for some of these kids. Motivating that student by celebrating him or her that oftentimes gets relegated to that kid list. And we know who those are, and everybody's experienced one of those students in the past, if not experiencing them now. But take time out of your day to, honest to God, celebrate your kids. And you don't have to be the world's greatest motivator. You don't need to be able to give the best halftime speech in the world when most kids couldn't care less about your ability to come in and clean up the X's and O's and get a team to sneak out in the second half to beat the team that they shouldn't. You put a little effort into showing those kids that they are important to you and that you care about them by celebrating what they do. A lot of the motivation to have a competitive FFA chapter kind of works itself out by simply loving on those kids a little bit.
Yeah, they got to know that they matter. They got to know that you care about them too. And that I'm so close in the age to them, that from when I first started teaching, I felt like I felt like I had to be this authority. I had to have the authority and I had to be over them, but it don't work that way. I mean, you come in and try to lay down the law. Now everybody says don't smile till Christmas. And there's a certain degree of what you can let go, but you come in and lay the law and tell them how it's going to be. That's the quickest way to lose them.
That's right.
That's true.
Because our students are not stupid. Okay. They're not.
No.
And they know when you're real and they know when you're fake. Mm-hmm. And remember, we still teach an elective class, and students can elect not to take it. And if enough students elect not to pursue your coursework, the school district can elect not to pay you. And so there's a balancing act there that you have to make them want to come to your class. My teaching partner, we jumped more this year with the students in our classes, and we're getting kind of cozy in some of those classes. I know Becca's really cozy in a couple of her little cracker box classroom classes, and she's got 22 or 3 kids in there making God knows what with flowers. It looks like.
It's great.
It looks like Times Square after New Year's, about 3 days a week in there. But it's a good problem to have because these kids are crawling all over the place because they want to be there, because they know the 2 people out there, they may not agree with everything we say all the time, but they know we've got their back and we care about them. And you don't have to be like that. Don't think for a second that you don't need to be stern and stand up for your ideals and morals and what you know is right. I slung around some lunch detentions a couple of days ago on some students that just really were having some trouble staying focused. And I'm just like, well, that sounds like a good lunch detention for you. Are you serious? Well, that's 2. And then the little guy across the hall, classroom was chuckling, well, that's 1 for you too. And that day after school, I was out at the school farm, and half of them came out, actually all of them came out and go, Swaff, we're sorry. We shouldn't have been like that. And I'm like, I know, guys. And guys, if we can't get it together in here, I ain't taking you out to the shop. And, they get it. They know how far I can go, and they know they went too far. And, but they're motivated enough to want to come out and fix that behavioral problem because it disappointed me and they knew it.
Right.
And if you can get to that point, then you're doing a pretty good job, because they're not always going to behave perfect for you, even the great ones.
And you're right. They can elect not to take our class, and they can elect not to pay us, which is why, folks, we're once again asking for your financial support. Anything that can be provided is greatly appreciated. We'll be right back.
Lyle fixed his light problem, I see.
Hey,
I see you banging on the thing, turning your lights on.
Don't jinx it. They can go off at any time. You just never know.
That's right. Well,
I think there's a ghost in this building. I really have thought that there's an aberration in this place.
That is the longest they've been on.
Yeah, I'll be just sitting here at my desk, and there's nobody in the building right now. And I'll just sit at my desk, and I just hear something down the hall, and I'm like,
you're a brave soul.
You're
all by yourself.
That ain't good.
Because that CTE building is old enough to have ghosts of,
Yeah, it's 5 years old. What could have happened? What possibly could have happened here? Anyway.
Yeah, we're not talking about ghosts. Okay.
Okay, well, we have really shared some poop and some mayhem and some motivation tonight.
Yeah, I've heard enough. I'm good for that. This one's good.
So, gentlemen, ladies, thank you for joining us as always. And not only are we well-mannered, Lyle, but we are
well-manured.
All right. Thank you, folks.
Bye, Lyle.
Bye.